You're listening to That Thing Called Inclusion, a podcast filled with the ramblings of a Northern Irish blind man and a wheelchair-using English woman. Join our disabled duo as they share their lived experiences of disability and working within the world of recruitment. Let's end the stigma together. Let's talk about that thing called inclusion.
Okay, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And I'm Jamie.
And as the intro said, we are that thing
called inclusion. And we don't have to make it ourselves no more. We don't have to be out of sync. That is a work of art. I feel like I'm in the X Factor.
I'm living out my Hollywood fantasies right now. I'm literally going to be up for an
inclusion. And the winner is Fuchsia Carter.
And Jamie Shields.
Thank you.
My goodness. That guy is epic. I don't know where you found him, but he's epic.
That's what I said. It was an exchange of money involved. I'll just leave it there. If you want it done properly, you gotta pay.
You do have to pay sometimes.
Hashtag go fund Jamie.
But that leads nicely on to what we were talking about last time, weren't we? About finding an accessible employer and what to look out for. Now, a lot of companies throw a lot of money towards looking sparkly and nice and saying that they're going to do X, Y, and Z. But in our experience and worlds, the things that you actually want to look out for are awards, aren't they, Jamie?
100%. Like, it's easy to say, I'm doing this or we're doing that. Like, you know, I speak to companies who say, we're experts in inclusion, we're experts in diversity. And you go onto the website and the first thing's missing is an accessibility toolbar. And it's like, well, how can you be an expert when you don't have this toolbar? So it's important to kind of look at where the company's putting their money where the mouth is. If a company's doing well within that space, they'll want to get awarded to show it off. So other businesses and colleagues or potential colleagues and candidates to work there will be able to see.
Definitely. And there are major ones in the UK, such as the National Diversity Awards, the Shaw Trust Power 100, Disability Confidence Scheme, and something that you were just working on earlier this week, weren't you?
We were indeed. Now, AMS themselves, I've been working on us getting our level 2 accreditation. So AMS is now a level 2 disability confident employer. We knew they were, but it is... What I really like about disability confident is an employer has to look in the mirror. It's a real just self-evaluation, saying, what are we doing right here? What are we doing wrong? But not just one person saying it. So it wasn't just me saying this. It was collaboration from different departments. And that's, I think, for inclusion, every part of your business needs to be included. And I think for these awards and for these disability confidence especially, there has to be that all buy-in. Otherwise, there's no point doing it. But yes, there's quite a few awards, as you mentioned there. And you know, like talking of Shaw's future, I think we've kept like a massive secret from our listeners because Mrs. Carter sitting over here is on the Power 100 list herself. Now, do you want to tell us firstly what that little list is so people can get an idea what who Shaw's are?
Yeah, so the Disability Power 100 list is run by the Shaw Trust, which is a trust for disabled people looking for employment, and they help support disabled people, and they run workshops and funds and have special client base, job sites, and even one-to-one care about, you know, if you require someone to go through your CV, write your CV for you, take you to jobs, be there with interviews. They're really, really great. And sorry if you can see a cat wandering around. She's being very nosy. For those of you who can't see, because you're on the podcast, my cat has decided to join everything. So every year they do this Disability Power 100, which is the most 100 influential disabled people in the UK of that year. And I'm one of those 100. I didn't quite make it into the top 10, I think, or top 12. But, you know, I'm only 2 and a bit years in. So I've only been doing this properly for 2 and a bit years. And there have been people on the list that have been doing it for what seems like decades of really hard work and activism. And just going out there and lobbying Parliament and stuff. So I feel like what I do really does help the disabled community, but it's not known enough to people to think that it is super important. But it's obviously, for me, I don't think it's important as the activism stuff, but it is really important to help support candidates. I mean, I had some amazing candidates today who were just like, oh, I wish I'd known about this like 10, 15 years ago, and I really wish I had this when I left school. So it really does make an impact about, you know, what I do. But so that's why I'm on the list, and that was done by our wonderful clients that we work for to put me forward.
And it's such a, like, we keep talking about like kept secrets. We kept it a secret for people for nearly 6 episodes, and I don't know how. And people said to us when we started, like, what are you going to talk about? Because surely this is a few episodes. And I was like, we all know inclusion is not, there's no happy ending to this. This conversation is something that's going to be continuously had over the next couple of years, over the next decades. And it's just constantly going to change because things change. But I think for me to know that you are on that list, like for me, I didn't really know what the list was until I came into the professional world. But I always said growing up, there was nobody for me to look up to. There was nowhere for me to see myself. And this list, I think, inspires a younger generation of disabled people. It gives you that role model. These are people who have made an impact, as you said, through their work, through their activism, through lobbying government. And I just think that to have that accreditation is, you know, there's not an actual big award show, is there, that I'm aware of? Or maybe there is, and I don't know. But, you know,
there was, before the pandemic, there was a dinner, and, you know, I think you got like presented with a certificate and stuff. This year we got a book. Sorry, my cat keeps kicking my lights. I'm going to push her down now. Oh, she wants to join. Oh, but she's being a right nightmare. If I suddenly go dark, that's why. But yeah, so it is quite important. I mean, you know, to have 100 people on this list, and we did a virtual kind of awards ceremony where, you know, your category was called out. So obviously I was in business and finance because of my client, and then they said like the top people within that made up the top 100, and then they did the top 12 and 10, and then the first one, which was obviously the Valuable 500. So it's the first time a company actually won the disability, well, not won, but became the top of the Disability Power 100 list. And obviously it was Caroline that was mentioned, but she said no, it was it was the Valuable 500 that won it, really. And I agree with her, because she's done so much work, and I had the pleasure to meet her before the pandemic at my client's HQ, and she just blew me away, because that's when she was launching this. And at that time, I think she only had like 25 people, and she was lobbying this client that I'm working for. People already know who I work for because it's all over LinkedIn, but I just don't want to actually say their name. I don't want to say their name. But we all know who it is. And she was like standing there with like all like the top big wigs, and I was like there as like, oh, I'm future, I'm going to come in and say hello to her because I'm a disabled person and you suits need to go away. And this is clearly not what I'm meant to be talking to in the episode, but and she was like, oh, I don't think I'm doing enough. I don't think the company's I've got like 75 saying they're going to be all right with it, but they're not too sure. And what's she done? She's gone way over the 500. Way over the 500. And that's another thing to look for if you're looking for a company. Obviously, it's not going to be the small little co-ops that are just down the street, but if you're going to look to work into any major industry, look for the companies that are on the Valuable 500 list,
100%.
because they're the ones that are also disability confident, hopefully.
They are.
Otherwise, why would they sign up to the Valuable 500? But it just gives you a leeway into what companies are connected, because all the companies are technically connected.
Yeah, so like the way that, I think we've already touched on the Valuable 500, but the way that they work is they initially, so Caroline got 500 company CEOs to sign on to say, we are committed to disability inclusion. We're going to put this on our boardroom agenda, and we're going to actually make change rather than continuously say we're going to do. So the way it kind of works is the Valuable 500 is holding these businesses accountable, and they have a board where these members will all contribute to kind of where we're headed with this organization. And I know the next step of it, Caroline announced last year, is now we have 500 CEOs. Now we want 500 disabled people to work alongside those CEOs and get that training. And I think she called them Vanguards. And I was kind of like, yes, wasn't it Vanguards? That's something out of Star Wars too. So we all know we love a good Star Wars reference. But like that's so like that's again the Valuable 500 is, as Fuchsia said, that's not something you get down the street. That's something your likes of the bigger companies will have been signed on to. And to be honest with you, there's some really big names on there. If you're, I don't know if this is an appropriate question. Maybe Fuchsia, you have an opinion on this here. But do you think sometimes it's easier to go into a bigger company who is talking more openly about inclusion, or do you think it's sometimes better to go into that smaller company who maybe don't have mentions of it?
Well, I think taking from what all my candidates say day in, day out is that the reason why, I mean, I don't ask them why they've chose my client at all, but they like to, like to have a conversation, a little bit of banter, back and forth. And most of the time, the preference is to apply to a bigger company because there is that sense of feeling that they are going to be held accountable for the recruitment process and being looked after within the company because they're going to have more money to support disability. That's the feeling. Where sometimes that doesn't really need to be the case. I'm sure like an independent bookshop, down the road from you, if you told them about access to work, they'd be more than happy to support you because then it's not costing them money, really. But it is difficult, isn't it? Because you don't want to go to a company and go, well, I've applied for a job here, but I have a disability. Are you going to be able to support me? Because we know from our own experiences of what we've gone through with recruitment, 9 times out of 10, that smaller company is going to go, no. And it's just changing that, isn't it? It's changing that mindset that they can do it. It's not going to cost them the earth. And here's why.
And like these awards, so like that's the Valuable 500, and like as well as that, there you also have the Business Disability Forum. And I know we've kind of touched on these in previous episodes, but again, I think we're trying to highlight the importance that there is so much buy-in out there. The Business Disability Forum is businesses across the UK who have a global presence. They can join up to the Global Task Force, and essentially they're signing on to get support from an organisation that are SME, so subject matter experts in what they do. So I think in this day and age, I don't think there's really an excuse for an employer not to be involved in an initiative or involved with an advocate organisation. The RNIB does a Workable programme, which works with putting people who have acquired their disability later in life, and they look to put people into roles, into companies or different careers and support them doing that. And there's loads of other local advocate organisations within the UK doing that, and in Northern Ireland. So there's really no excuse, companies out there, to say that, oh, we don't know where to turn to. Well, actually, no, you've got quite a lot of resources out here. Yes, we will agree it is a minefield on Google to find them, but as a business, surely your priority is putting your people first. So you would have research this here before you start bringing in disabled talent to the business. And let's be real, you don't always know somebody's disabled because we don't have to disclose we're disabled.
Exactly.
We should be comfortable. I think that what I'd like to see is in years to come that employers, you don't have to come into work saying, I need adjustments. You can have your adjustments selected beforehand. I think if we started breaking down some of those bars and the words around it, then there could be a lot of change. And I think that's another episode. I'm digressing when he said digest. Just a FYI for our listeners, for a few months, Jamie thought digress meant the word was digest. So I was telling people in webinars, sorry, I'm digesting rather than I'm digressing. So apologies for, I don't know if I said it properly or not. But back on
the world of our brains, eh?
Back on to the attraction piece. Fuchsia, your role I think is very interesting because I think that your title, if I was somebody applying for a job, your title would inspire me to kind of feel more confident about applying because your title is a disability consultant.
Yeah, and for my client, it's actually candidate care consultant. So that having that care element does make it feel like a pillow around you. I mean, when they first said that, I was like, candidate care consultant? Are you kidding me? I've got a speech impediment and dyslexia. How are you? What do you want to make me keep saying that? So after I used to say it, and then after a while, I just stopped saying it. I was like, "Hi, I'm Fuchsia. I'm from blah 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 blah. I'm here to support you in the recruitment process." But yeah, my other title for AMS is disability consultant.
And I said, like that title though, like, have you ever had? I've never had somebody reach out to me from a business when I've applied with that title, or even that care consultant kind of
No,
title.
not at all. No. When I've been going to other clients and even outside AMS's sphere of businesses that we support. I've had external businesses coming to me and they see disability consultant and they seem to think I've got a PhD in disability care and that I'm not a disabled person. So it does hold weight, that title. But when they
Hmm.
start talking to me and they realize actually, no, it's lived experience that I have, they're so passionate about it. They're almost bouncing off the walls, and I'm thinking, Christ, have you got undiagnosed ADHD? Are you all right there? Calm down. It's great that you're passionate, but it's so weird. But again, that's another thing to look out for. I think if you're looking for companies, is the companies that are very bouncy to know that you have a disability, because that means, okay, yeah, you can be cynical and go, oh, they just want me to get to get money for them, or they have to tick a box or something. But you do get a general sense of when someone's being genuine and they do want
100%.
you. And that's another thing to look out for. If you've like handed in your CV or you've applied online and you get someone calling you up and you haven't disclosed that you've got a disability, but you think at this point that maybe you just want to give a hint that you've got something, if they go, oh, right, okay, maybe step back a bit and think about the situation. But if they come like, oh, great, oh, no, I didn't mean great, that you have a disability, and then they start tripping up over their words and like,
Yeah.
oh, no, we can support you, this is great, then you know that it's a genuine response. And I think
Yeah.
that's the most important thing about who to look for sometimes in a disability confident employer, is that they're going to get the words wrong. They're going to
Of
say the
course.
wrong terms. But if they're genuinely excited, that means that they really want to be better and change things. But it's very difficult to, I think, well, we're of a certain age, aren't we? But when you're younger, it's really difficult to judge if someone's being genuine, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I've gone on too far about that, but it's just
No,
like, to
I
me, it's just so important. Tone of
it
voice
is.
sometimes.
And like I think I always say to anybody who's not disabled, or even people with disabilities, disability is a minefield. Like we are only ever subject, like people with disabilities, we only are subject matter experts in our own disability. I can sit and tell you what works for me, what doesn't work for me, but I couldn't tell you if somebody else with the exact same eye conditions as me what would
Yeah.
work for them, because again, we all are different. And I think that when somebody is having a conversation, if they do stop and they are kind of, trying to ask questions in a way, or one thing that I like to do is I like to see people just ask those silly questions, and we always say just ask those silly questions, no such thing. So I think when you're going through the screening process, it's if somebody is kind of tiptoeing around it, but they are generally trying to ask you, that's still a good sign. And I know when you're younger, you're probably going, this is filling me with confidence.
Yeah.
However, I'm sure that if you go and look up that company, as by now we hope you would have done, you would have looked at this company, you would have seen that they have some kind of conclusion within the business or
Yeah.
values around it. But as well as like when you are applying, I think one thing as well with disability confident is within the UK with that disability confidence scheme, if you are disabled and you're willing to self-disclose that you have a disability to an employer, a lot of employers run what's called offer an interview scheme,
Yeah.
which essentially means if you're a disabled candidate and you have the criteria for the job, you're offered an interview. So offer an interview and you go straight into that interview. So employers, if you're an employer offering that, fantastic. If you're a disabled person and you see an employer looking at that, you know that employer is at least a disability confident level 2, and that they are making those commitments. So, Fisher, can I ask you then? So, in your role, so tell us exactly, because I know we've kind of touched on it briefly, but tell us exactly then, because you kind of come in on board here when somebody needs an adjustment. So, somebody says, I need an adjustment. What happens if I say I need an adjustment? What do you do?
Yeah, so I literally start the onboarding process for any candidate. So they filled out their form for this global company that not sure. It sounds like I can't name them because they're the world's worst company. Oh my goodness. We all know
They
who
shall not be
they
named.
are. They shall not be named. We all know who they are. The ones with the lions. Can I?
Shh, we'll have a suit.
You'll only know that because it's an inside joke. Honk honk. But yeah, so the candidate fills out the form, and on the very first page of this client's application form, it has, "Do you have the right to work in the UK?" And then straight underneath that, "Do you deem yourself to have a disability under the Disability Confidence Scheme," which is obviously that government-run scheme that Jamie and I have just been talking about. "And do you require any reasonable adjustments during the recruitment process?" Now, if they tick one or both of those boxes, the system is pulled and all of their data comes through to me. And I get a list of names every morning for people to contact. And sometimes I will go through their profile to see if they've put their disability down. Because if they've put like autism or they're deaf, obviously I'm not going to call them right away for many different reasons. And then I'll send emails out explaining who I am, what I'm looking to do to support, and then arrange a phone call. But 9 times out of 10, I will call that person throughout that day, or send them an email if I can't get through, and have a conversation with them. So I first off explain who I work for. Doesn't always come out right. I don't know. I was having a terrible day with saying who I was working for. I clearly forgot. And then I explain the process to them that they're going to go through. So like you say, the interview. Now, my client doesn't immediately offer an interview. You do have to pass certain background checks and hit a certain criteria, but that's only because of the nature of the business that it is. So it's a little bit different. So they have slightly changed rules, because otherwise, if they offer every disabled person an interview going in, it would be in the hundreds, and that would be it wouldn't be feasible. It wouldn't be possible to do.
I think as well, especially within certain sectors, within markets, different sectors, there's different kind of processes, checks that you have to go through. You know, if there's certain jobs that you apply for, you can have certain like CCJs in your past, things like that, or you can't have lived outside the country for a certain amount of time. So I think that one of the things about offering an interview scheme, as I always remind people, is although you are guaranteed an interview if you're disabled, there is circumstances what exclude that. So if the role has been filled a lot quicker, if there's say thousands of applications, that can be narrowed down to new criteria. So there is limitations, and your employer obviously being such a, again, they must not be named. Your client is such a big in the market, so people don't know who they are. So you're obviously bombarded with applications.
Yeah, I mean, thousands. I think since I've started, which is nearly 3 years ago, I think I've touched nearly 7,000 people. I touched 3,000 in the first 18 months.
That's amazing.
That's a lot. There's a lot of people
that's a lot of touching.
There's a lot of touching there. It's like a.
Hope you had your hand sanitizer over the pandemic.
Like meet them all in a room. I explain the process that they're going to. So I say if you are invited to an interview, and I really emphasize that, and I keep saying if. To lower expectations, because I don't want to say you are going to have an interview and then them get rejected because, like you say, they've got a CCJ or there's a criminal conviction, or they failed a test that they do have to do and pass, unfortunately. So you know, I try and level expectations, but I also try to explain each and every step and along the process so people know what's going to go down. And then I take their adjustment for an interview. And I say, if you're invited to an interview, this is what I can offer. And I do just the very basic things, like provide the questions before the interview. If you're neurodivergent, it's normally an hour. If you're just neurodivergent such as autism, ADHD, it's an hour. Dyslexia, sometimes an hour to half an hour. Most dyslexics are happy with half an hour. And I say things like extra time to answer the questions, having breaks during the interview. Having breaks during the interview is so important, because you can't sit there for an entire hour sometimes, especially if you're in a lot of pain. Things such as, I just arranged today of a BSL interpreter, and making sure that there's level access. Toilets nearby, that's a really big thing. Even things such as please don't be in a bright white room because I get migraines and I got epilepsy and it's triggered by bright lights. It's just anything and everything. And when I say what I can offer, I don't have this all in my head, by the way, people. I do not have this all in my head. I actually have a crib sheet of information that I've pulled from government websites, which is what is illegally allowed to be offered. And people go to me going, I didn't think I was allowed to have this. And I was like, this is the bare minimum of what the government states that you're allowed to have during an interview. Bare minimum.
And when you're talking about what you're doing there, these are not even simple fixes, but these are questions that you can ask and ascertain this information before you've even got that interview. If an employer is already taking this much of an interest in you, you know that they are willing to support you, I think, coming through this process.
Yeah.
And talking about those adjustments, I was on a session there yesterday, which was I can't go into too much detail, but it was to do with a study that was being done in Northern Ireland around visually impaired people and getting into employment. And one of the things that me and other employers have kind of identified was nobody knows where to go find out this adjustments.
Yeah.
Like, when you leave education, there's a gap of knowledge. Nobody's supporting you. There's no advocate organisations like the RNIB. And again, I'm focused on visual impairment here because that's what the study was. But nobody knows where to go. I didn't know where to go. Like my friend actually said to me last week, it's only now that I've known you in this whole length of time that you're actually able to say what adjustments work best for you, because you've done so much over the years now that you've got experience with it.
Yep.
And somebody had said, God, an idea would be to have, where we have job fairs. Imagine there was an adjustment or an assistive technology fair where you could go, and I think there is things in England, places where you can get involved with this here, but they have the equipment that you can try out. And imagine if you were a young person with disability, you could go try this out. So by the time you were having this interview where somebody like Fuchsia, you would have an understanding instead of having
job fair like that
to almost sit in awe, because some of the things people have told you as well.
Yeah, it's shocking. I mean, we do have disability fairs in mainland England, and it's called NEDEX, I believe. I probably said that completely wrong. But they don't have, it's like, I've pronounced CEX wrong all my life, the shop. It's not pronounced CEX at all. I've only just learnt that today as well.
Wait, what's it pronounced?
I can't pronounce it. It's impossible to pronounce. Because I keep wanting to say sex, but it's not. It's see, I can't do it. Anyway, we digress.
Google.com.
Google it, everyone, and get the soundbite, because it's not CX. Trust me. But yeah, to be invited to like trade shows like that, but is a recruitment sphere, that would be amazing. Like AMS have its like own little pop up, going, oh look, this is what you're entitled to if you're looking, but because it's such a niche thing, even though it should be a global thing, we have job fairs. In TA we have job fairs. That's what talent acquisition is. You go to campuses, you go to businesses, you go to trade shows. But they're all like, oh, join our business. We've got the latest, or we're looking for like 5,000 engineers across global networks. And none of them. I've been to one in my life, TA trade show, and none of them offered any support for disabled people. And if anything, I was ignored as I was reeling round. I was actually physically going up to these stands and going, oh, I'm really interested, because this is before I had a job, right? I was like, oh, I'm really interested, because I was so desperate for a job. I even went to one of these flipping shows, which are just a nightmare. But anyway, and they were just like ignoring me, or going, oh, sorry, you can't work here. We can't support disabled people. It's things like that. And the thing is, we could be doing so much more, so much more, but there aren't enough hours in the day. And we're only two people, and we can't do it all ourselves. So we need like a network, a gang of people just going out there going, look, this is what talent acquisition could be doing. Do it.
And like that's it. There's so many people, I think, when it comes to talent acquisition, not even like so many people. I've come across a few people on LinkedIn, and I think we've reached out. We've talked about them and maybe trying to get them on the show as guests. But there's people out there who are making posts, and it's almost like you're putting your frustration and you're venting into posts, and it's sad because it blows up on LinkedIn and people share it and comment about it, and it's so sad that somebody has to get that angry about a recruitment process for somebody to say, oh, we can change this. Why does somebody have to go on and pour their soul out and anger and frustration to say, I can't get this job because of this? There was a gentleman who was deaf, and he was basically, any job he was applying for, they were coming back to him and trying to get a call. well, how is he getting on a call? Why are you not offering him a Teams chat where there could be closed captions? You can be in video. He could potentially be able to lip read too. Well, if it was me, you'd probably not be able to because how fast I speak, nobody could lip read me, I don't think. But,
there's means and ways, and it's like
of course.
it's and that's another thing to look out for with companies, ladies and gentlemen, kids, non-binaries, and all your lovely people in between. If a company is not even willing for the first instant to contact you in a way that you're comfortable with, they're not worth it. If they can't even be bothered to read what you've put, if, like you say, if you're deaf or blind and you need certain different forms of communication, if they can't even be bothered to do that, then they're not going to help you internally.
100%.
Not at all. I mean, even with my client, they're really even concentrating on pronouns now to make sure that everyone's 100% comfortable. They've even knocked off pronouns actually on the application form. It doesn't come up with, it just comes up with a name. So I really have no idea what gender I'm calling, and it's not really anything to do with applying for a job, is it really? I mean, but it's things like that you need to look out for as well.
I think things like that. I think that with a company, you know, we talk very much about the disability side of our work here, what we do, and we're passionate for that side. But I think when you see businesses making those changes, and you know, rather than just pushing one agenda and saying, "Oh, we're going to focus on gender this year. Next year, we're going to focus on LGBTQI. Next year, 10 years later, we're going to focus on disability." Like that their intersectionality, and to see that allyship in the company, I think is another really good sign as well. But in terms of applying,
for anyone watching it and they were seeing my faces when Jamie was going up that list, it's because they do it separately.
Yeah,
do it all
they
together.
Really do. And I guess like you can't be like, let's say for example, you can't be a gay, black, disabled man because we're focused on disability this year, or we're focused on ethnicity this year.
No.
It's like let's just have allyship, and I think that's something that it's again company values. Company values, I think, say a lot about a company.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at a company to come to apply to it, and you can see their values and have values around, I love authentic, and I know that's one of AMS's, and I've stolen it, but I love that because that means you can be yourself at work. You can bring your best self, and I think that for me, I've never worked in an environment where I could talk about being gay, I could talk about being disabled, I could call myself a sparkly unicorn, and people wouldn't bat an eyelid. And I'm able to do that within with my current job, within my current role within AMS itself. And I'm sure you agree with it. It's when there's values like that, it really does start to instill that culture.
Oh, 100%.
But
100%.
Obviously, you can't see a culture when you're playing. So I think in terms of what we're covering, so I know we're kind of going back and forth here with like table tennis, but I was kind of thinking as well, Fiona, on websites, would you agree that if a company has a contact email on their website or on that job advert to say contact us to discuss your adjustments, would you agree that's also a really good step?
Yeah, definitely. I know my client doesn't, for many reasons, because I'd be inundated with emails. That's not the right word, is it? I would literally have emails to people that haven't even applied yet. Maybe in days to come when I have a full empire and a full call center. But yeah,
her army of Jedi.
Yeah, no, having a dedicated person to reach out to is so important, and that's the biggest thing that I get from my clients, and candidates, knowing that they can talk to just one person that they can discuss things with is so important to them. And having that contact details, or even having like a blurb saying, we are disability confident. If you don't want to disclose your disability, fine, but we're here to support you for all your needs. You can just tell us what you need and we'll do it. I mean, obviously not quite 100%. Like that. It needs to be businessy. Come on, Fuchsia. You're not ever going to be a business leader, are you? But
yes, you will. I have no doubt that you are going to be a dark Jedi of the world.
Like all those are the business buzzwords. I can't do business buzzwords. And that's a major thing that puts people off going into big business if they're disabled, is remembering all the flipping buzzwords. Blue sky thinking, beanbag skylines. I honestly, I don't know. I'm going into David
one thing I think I think in recruitment as well, because we both obviously work in recruitment, there's so many acronyms as well. And I know myself, I can remember being in a conference, training, when I started. And do you know when you're in training, you have your buzzwords wrote down? And I bought myself whiteboards, don't know why, because I was never seeing it. It was like school all over again. But I had wrote down acronyms. I was like, I'm going to know this in this call. And was bigging myself up and went to say the meaning of the acronym. And I can remember just standing there going, because I couldn't see it. It was in front of me and I just couldn't see it. And obviously for me to see it, I had to be like right into it the way I am on camera nearly now. But it was fun.
Yeah, no, that's another thing. Kiddie winkles. If you're applying for a job, don't worry about the acronyms. Honestly, no one in the business knows what they are. They all have a crib sheet, all of them. Every
Especially for the first couple of weeks.
Every single person. But it is going into the unknown, isn't it? It's like, because businesses, when they interview you, they want to see your passion for the business, because otherwise why else have you applied for this job apart from probably you're flipping desperate and your power's going to get cut off any moment. But you do have to show kind of like a level of interest in the business that you're going into.
Of course.
But you don't have to remember all the stupid acronyms and buzzwords or anything like that. They just want to know and see your passion, and that's the biggest thing. And also, as I keep saying to all my candidates, it's a two-way street. If you don't like the person interviewing you, then it's not the job for you, or maybe not the person or department for you. Just saying.
I tell everybody that one of the things that interviews to do is remember you're being interviewed, yes, 100%, but you're interviewing that company right back. So if that person isn't living up to your expectations, don't be afraid to say. I think from working in recruitment, I've learned to get a bit ballsy, I'll say, in the sense that if I'm having a call with somebody and they're trying to approach me on LinkedIn and something's not right, and you've heard my first rant, I definitely do. I tell people, sorry, you're not accessible. And that's something I've developed, and it's almost as you get older, you get a bit more stubborn. I think that's what it is, because I've found that empowerment, I understand. But that's an episode in itself. Maybe that's something we can do. We have contacts within recruitment. We'll bring some people on. We'll talk about what people look for when you go through interviewing, and maybe being Fuchsia's disabled people can add wee tips to that. But Fuchsia, we kind of covered a lot over the past two episodes in regards to applying for jobs.
We've probably melted people's brains, but we do have a resource site, and you can reach out to us if you just want a little one-to-one tip. Obviously, we do work full-time, okay, for a company, and we've got clients, but we are here to help you, and if we can't, then we can point you in a general direction. All right, lovelies?
I was going to call you Auntie there, so was. Auntie has got your back, what she does.
The sticks aren't all bad. We look after our younglings too. Just Anakin just went a little bit. He had a moment.
He just had a bad day. Like, he just had a bad day. Like, you weren't trusting him. Like, let's be real.
Anyway, they never actually showed him doing anything. So
this is this. He may have just locked them in a cupboard.
Locked them in a cupboard. Yep, totally locked them in a cupboard.
But
sorry.
I just wanted as well to also, last week when we had Chad here and he kind of spoke about his experiences around employment, I think as well, we keep talking about that support. That support, I think, is evidential. And I think it's so important to remember, if a company wants to support you, they will be showcasing people who are disabled, who are diverse. They will also have these awards. They'll talk about it. If they're doing off an interview, they'll have it if you're applying for it. And let's be real, if you can't get on that website, don't apply to that company. Don't ask your friend. Don't apply to that company. Your friend or your family member should not have to read you what a company says on their website for you to want to work there. You should want to work there because you have seen it, and you see a picture, you see something, you think, this is my happy home. This is my place.
Yeah. And it's just so important. And also, don't be afraid to move jobs after 6 months, a couple of years. If you're not comfortable, move. But that's a whole different episode as well, talking about moving and finding your career, and finding what's good for you. See, we do have lots to talk about all the time.
What do you want to do when you grow up? That's going to be the name of that episode, because I still don't know.
I'm still thinking Grand Empress, but the power, I don't know. The responsibility of looking after the entire universe would be a bit of a ball ache.
I was going to be the footman of the Empress, but I don't think being registered blind and being a footman is a good hand-in-hand role. So I'm just going to stick to the background and pretending I know what's going on.
I'd be like, Jamie, can you just grab the thing off the thing? Because I'm like having a really bad language game. I can't tell you where it is. And I'm like, the thing on the thing. Over the... Jamie, no.
Who said that? I don't know where it's coming from. Use the force. I can't see.
I can't see anything. But we better wrap up, hadn't we?
We
Otherwise
better.
we'll be rambling on and people be like, what on earth are they doing?
This is it. They've run crazy, so it is. It's after we've just literally finished work and I've come into this podcast.
We wanted to get
so
one out for
we've
you.
also we've also started going bi-weekly as well. So we became bi-weekly with the episodes, and just to let I was going to say our fans, or who do I think? I think I'm an influencer. Our fans, all our fans out there. But no, I think with that is obviously we work, as we both say, and you can see what happens after a day of work. We're both losing our minds, but gone cuckoo. But we just wanted to have more time to kind of put into creating the content. I think last week after we had chatted on as a guest, we realised there's a lot of work to do to the website and editing. So we're going to go bi-weekly. You'll still have us walking to work on a Monday, so you will, but it will be every 2 Sundays now. But Fishy, should we go into our rant?
Do please, come on, rant of the week.
So my rant this week, I'm going to go first because you're going to finish up and close the show. So my rant this week is, I was on a call with a company who had sourced my information. Now, everyone knows I'm a sourcer/sorcerer, and what that means is we find people for jobs. We don't just look for people who have applied, we go look for people. So somebody had found my number and contacted me, and on the middle of the call, it was my lunch. I said, do you know what? I'm going to have this conversation because YOLO. And the lady was proceeded to tell me, I've got this great opportunity. It's working remote. It's like, okay, not really on the market, but let's keep going with this. And we're a really big expert in diversity inclusion, especially within the disability space. And at this point, I'm thinking, who is this website? Because I've not heard of it. So I opened up my laptop whilst I was on the call. Can you spell that company for me? Typed it in. There was no accessibility toolbar. The website was completely inaccessible. There was white images, like white splashy images with white text in the middle of it. And I was like going, what? So on the middle of the call, I stopped the lady when she was continuing to tell me about it. We're such an SME in this and we specialise and we supported. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not an accessible company because I'm registered blind and I can't use your website. So for you to tell me that you're an expert in disability is a complete understatement. So I would like to rant that if you're going to claim to be an accessible company, please have the goods to back it up. Thank you. She probably thought I was really cheeky, but again, don't claim to be something you're not. There's nobody checking. Companies can say whatever they want about themselves. We're the first to do this. We're the first to do. Who's checking? Nobody checks this. We're an expert. I could be an expert in Lego just because I own a box of it.
I'm an expert in beauty, clearly, because I wear makeup every day.
I think you look beautiful every day, but let's be real. I wouldn't take that from me in this one person because I'm staring at the screen from a distance right now and I see a blur.
What on earth? That is ridiculous.
What is your rant, my love?
I can't really top that. My rant is actually to do with candidates.
Ooh.
I know it's hard being disabled. I live it. It's depressing. It hurts. It's tiring. It's exhausting. You have to face trauma every flipping day of your life because the PTSD never flipping stops. But if someone's reaching out to help you, don't shoot them in the face, please. I am a person. I do have thoughts.
Don't shoot the messenger.
And I know it's really hard if you've been rejected, but people like me and Jamie can only do so much to help you. You do have to help yourself in some aspects. And if it doesn't go your way, please don't be a dick about it. Because I really don't want to, wake up on a Tuesday morning and open my emails and find an email that I've been sworn at because something didn't go someone's way. It's not nice. I don't want to see that on a Tuesday morning. I haven't had my cup of tea yet. Okay? So we're all human and just be mindful that, the job market at the moment is incredibly stressful and there aren't that many jobs around despite what the flipping government is saying. And I want to give everyone a job, but please don't have a go. I mean, you don't even have a go at the recruiters. They're doing a really, really difficult job. They don't know you from anyone. You're just a CV. So please don't have a go at them. Please. Because otherwise we won't come back.
Everyone's human. We make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We forget to send an email. We forget to do a call. Yes, it may have been an inconvenience to you, but that person, like I know myself, if I forget to do something or I misspell something, I sit and have anxiety for about 2 hours after it. And even that night, I'll be lying tossing and turning. And having spoke to you a few times, Fuchsia, I know that this is something that affects you because you are so passionate about what you do. And I think when somebody doesn't get through or they take it out on you, you take it on such a personal level. And it's hard to watch, and no matter what you say to you when you're in that shape, there's nothing that nobody can say to take that away unless that person takes back what they said. And let's be real, people who tend to shout and spout when they're angry tend to bury their head in the sand after because they don't want to face what they did in that anger.
But that's my. I mean, I've got pretty thick skin, but I don't. I'll shout about it and then it will be gone and you'll be forgotten because I don't have enough energy to think about you. But no one wants to hear that. Not even a Sith Lord. Come on, we're just people.
She'll electrocute you.
Yeah, I'll electrocute you. I will. Do you know who my father is? But yes, and thank you everyone for joining in our podcast today. I hope you learnt something new and I hope you liked our new intro.
And we have
an outro that's about to come on, and it's going to be amazing, and you're going to feel like you're in a Hollywood movie. So we don't need to say anything anymore. So we're going to leave you. So it's goodbye from Fuchsia.
Goodbye from me. You're listening on the goal. And like I tried to steal it, so I did.
You've been listening to That Thing Called Inclusion. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Check out our website, www.thatthingcalledInclusion.com, for transcripts of each episode, or on YouTube for video and closed captions. Or check out our socials at That Inclusion. If you'd like to join us on the show as a guest speaker or advocate organization, then please drop us an email at info@thatthingcalledInclusion.com. Until next time, stay inclusive.